Hey, friends of the pod, it's Tyler. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to make sure you were aware and signed up for a couple of cool things happening at Grace. In this episode, you're going to hear us talk more about our financial health workshops happening on October 23rd and November 2nd at Grace. These workshops offer a biblically based approach to your relationship with your money. Whether you've got no financial margin and are looking to get a bit more healthy in your finances, or you're financially stable and want to take next steps in your financial wisdom, do not miss these workshops. You can go to gracechurch.us/making-change to sign up. The second thing you need to know is that tickets for our musical, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, are currently on sale. This is a beloved musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice, and it's coming to the stage at Grace. Tickets are super affordable for one of the highest quality performances you'll see locally this year. And our cast and crew have been working really hard to make it a great experience for everyone who comes. It's a family-friendly show, so invite your friends and neighbors of all ages to join you at Joseph. Tickets are still available at gracechurch.us/theater. All right, now let's get to today's show. Well, welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and all of my desires originate right in my intestines. Today, we're storing up treasures in heaven and talking about generosity, but before we make a withdrawal on our good works account in heaven, now that they've turned their eye lamps on, let's welcome in our favorite co-host, Meredith Barry. Good day, guys.
Good day.
And welcome back, Tim.
Yay!
Hey, Tim.
There he is.
Yes. Hey, it's amazing. I don't know how you do that.
Eye lamps, man.
Yeah,
Eye lamps.
You listen to the sermon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
right.
makes me laugh when I hear every
Yeah.
time.
I've never asked you this. Are you, when you're writing those intros, is it because you've just rewatched the message on Monday, or are you like taking notes during the message
usually-
Sunday morning?
Usually I'm sitting there during Sunday morning and I don't even look at the speaker. I look at your notes. And
Oh,
I'm
no.
just reading your notes as you're saying them. So it's like double intake. And I'm picking out from your notes like things that I'm like, okay, that could be interesting for the intro. That could be interesting for
Wow.
like I'm
That's
doing
funny.
it in the moment.
Mhm.
And then Monday morning I try to put all those things together. So I don't ever rewatch.
That's
Wow.
funny because I feel like a lot of times you catch things that aren't in the notes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Whatever
For,
works.
for sound bites, I definitely try to catch things that aren't in the notes. for sound clips. Yeah. Guys, what's new? Tim, welcome back. What's been new with you recently?
New?
Yeah, what's going on in your life? Has the countdown started? Are you in your
I'm,
senioritis? Do you have senioritis before
I think
you
I do
retire?
have a little bit of senioritis.
Yeah.
Not too bad. I'm not. No, I mean, I'm happy doing what
Yeah.
I do, and so I don't think I'm like thinking about how great it'll be when I'm not doing it anymore. Because
Yeah.
I'm
I don't know. Like sometimes, like when I know something's coming to an end, like I used to get this way when I would lead mission trips. It's like the last day, I'm like, all right, you guys are kind of on your own. I've done this for like 17 of the last 20 days and you guys are on your own. Or you could be like, I got to finish well. I'm going to make sure I put my lasting imprint on this experience. Like, where are you? Is it like, you guys just do whatever you want? I'm here.
Listen, if I've not put a lasting imprint by now,
Oh yeah, I mean, like
yeah.
your legacy will continue, but it's like I gotta take advantage of every moment in the last 3 months of this to make sure that
I think it's mostly, Tyler, that I'm trying to be as in the moment as I
Mm.
can be for
Yeah.
everything. I visited somebody in the hospital yesterday, and it was a moment where I was thinking, I may not have to come here ever again as a pastor.
yeah,
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And yet it was still a joy to be able to be that person. So
Yeah.
I don't feel, no, this has been a long landing of the plane. You know, we've known since March that
Yeah.
I was going to
Yeah.
do this, but
And you were thinking about possibly retiring earlier even. And so you've had plenty of time to consider in your heart of like what will an end look like? And also you've
Yeah.
been able to enjoy sort of thinking about how things are going, knowing that you're leaving. So it has
Sure.
been longer. I don't think it's like a
Yeah.
1 month sort of, thing.
I got an interesting email from somebody yesterday who's known me since I was in the 4th grade. And they, listen, I was going to share that with you later, Barry, but they listen to us online.
Mhm.
I don't know where this person lives, but it was just, how do I say it? It was encouraging that this person had known me since the 4th grade
Yeah.
and was seeing this end as an appropriate time for who they knew me to be all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
And they mentioned you, Barry. That's why that and it was a positive thing. And so
That's
just,
good.
well, no,
You never know.
yeah, I'm going to come here and go, and
Yeah.
boy, did they said,
Yeah,
no,
they
we
went
didn't
off.
go with it.
They
No,
went off.
but it was just nice to know that because I can feel the whole thing as a unit, I suppose.
Sure.
Better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been curious because, like I said, it's like when you give your 2 weeks notice or something, you're gonna leave or transition to a new thing, but you give your 2 weeks notice. Like some people like just sit at their desk and wait for that 2 weeks to be over. Other people are like making sure everything's in order and all that that kind of stuff. So just curious where you are.
Thanks for not giving us a 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Well, thanks for you not giving me a 2 weeks notice.
Right.
I wanted to finish well.
yeah.
It feels to me like you've spent the last 2 or 3 years passing the baton.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
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 And I think I'll look back on this space as some of the best days.
Yeah.
Is that because of me specifically?
Yeah.
It's
gotta be it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're on the bus, so yeah. It's not
Well,
that big of a
embarrassed.
bus. It's not that big of a bus. So
No,
Yeah.
I see how you have been very intentional in equipping us as you are making this transition into retirement. Maybe I should just speak for myself, but you've been such a resource to me, even just with materials and suggestions as I'm developing messages and anything that I need to pick your brain about. You're always there. So it hasn't been a short season in terms of your transition. It's really felt
right.
like a much longer exchange zone passing the baton.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because that's what I wanted it to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad to hear that too, because I remember you just being like livid.
I was pretty mad.
When you heard Tim was retiring, you were pretty
What?
mad.
I was mad.
Yeah.
What?
Because you mean so much to this team and to
Yeah.
this church and to me. And yeah, I grief takes many forms. Mine took rage.
I would have never guessed that. I've always felt like, my role since day one, and ever since I was even just an elder, preaching elder, has I've played second fiddle the whole time. And I'm not complaining about that at all. I have been able to work with other people in a way where I've felt valued and honored and important, and yet I haven't had that heaviest of weights
Mm-hmm.
of the ultimate leadership. And so I've been able to share myself with people more freely than if I were playing first fiddle.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably scary to you, Barry, for me to talk like that, but that's just the bottom line. And I don't think I was made for anything except for exactly what I've done the last 30 some years. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. What's going on with you guys? What's going on? Your lives.
You want me to go first? You just finished a personal sojourn.
Oh yeah, you were camping in
Personal
the
retreat.
30-degree weather.
It was 40 degrees. I can if you want.
Yeah.
I every year since 2005, I've done at least one sort of personal spiritual retreat where I kind of go and take stock of life and spend some time with God and just, be alone. And I've added in a little bit of reading and some other things into it. And it's always really good. It's a highlight of my year. But this time, just because I haven't gone backpacking in ages, I was like, you know what? I bet I could add a day to my trip and go from where I was out and do one night in the woods and then come back to where I was and finish up there. And that's what I
So
did.
being in a house by yourself was not enough.
I needed to
You
be
needed
miserable in the cold.
outside
Yeah.
in the cold.
I've got a whole system set up where I actually sleep in a hammock in the cold. And you'd think that'd be worse
Yeah.
because when you like, even if you have like an air mattress or whatever, if you're laying on it in the hammock, you're compressing it. So all the air underneath you still makes you cold. But I figured out, I know how to be content in every circumstance because you get one of those, like, those foam pads, those real dense foam pads that you kind of, the old style thing where you
like an
on
egg
a
crate.
backpack.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
That
Oh, wait,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Put one of those in first, and then my air mattress, and then my like 20-degree down sleeping bag. And I'm like fully clothed. I've got a hat on, and I'm actually just fine. I'm toasty as long as I'm in my sleeping bag. I'm perfectly comfortable.
Do you wake up with dew on your face?
Just on the face.
I just can't.
I don't know about that, but I did.
Gonna take a little snooze.
I've never gone camping and I never want to.
No,
but
you
I
don't-
just can't imagine waking up. Everything is covered in
No,
dew.
okay, that's funny. I've never actually thought about that as an issue. Although this time it was.
That's your only question?
That's her
your
main
first
concern.
As I'm working it out
Yeah.
in my mind in real time, I'm
Yeah.
like, you woke up cold
Yeah.
and wet.
And dewy. I guess, yes, that is a thing. And then it goes away and you make a fire and you make coffee and
Yeah.
life is great. So I don't know. It's fun. I enjoy it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've definitely never hammock
Hammock
camped,
Uh-huh.
but is it like, why not the tent? Like, why wouldn't you do
Oh,
a tent
so
over hammock?
At this time of year when it's cold and there's no bugs, like you don't have to take anything but the hammock and the straps. That's your whole setup.
Mm.
So it's lightweight. You don't have to carry a tent and all your other stuff. And so I love it. It's easy to set up. It takes a few minutes and it's also way more comfortable to like sit in during the day. You're not just like sitting on the ground. You're
How deep into the woods did you have to go?
I only went a couple miles this time, but the place where I go, the Charles C. Deem Wilderness Area, is one of the few wilderness areas. But because it's wilderness, you don't have to camp at a designated site. You can go anywhere you want. So it's all on Lake Monroe, and so this is kind of like a little farther back on Lake Monroe where it kind of weaves around. So you can kind of go to an isolated spot, and you're just you and nature, and there's deer and birds. It's great. It's
all right.
lovely. So
Do you
Yeah.
cook dinner there?
yeah. Oh yeah.
What'd you eat?
Well, I had lunch and dinner. Lunch was I had this like soup, this like lentil soup mix sort of thing that I made with like herbs and spices and some like vegetarian bouillon cubes. So it doesn't weigh anything really.
Uh-huh.
And then you put it in the water and it, yeah. And then I did like a freeze dried pad thai meal for dinner.
Ooh.
So I had like a good veggie soup for lunch and like pad thai for dinner.
Okay.
And in the morning, I made like instant oatmeal with raisins. So it was like a hearty oatmeal meal. And then
I'm feeling better about this.
Yeah,
Hey,
see?
most people come here for like the digging deep into grace, like
no,
sermons.
now they're
or-
coming here to see
now they're
Marin
coming-
turn into a backpacker. It's happening.
No, it's not happening. It's not happening. Although it almost kind of a little bit happened over the weekend.
Really?
So we finally got around to celebrating our 22nd wedding anniversary. Saturday we went hiking in Brown County,
Nice.
and we hiked for 6 miles.
Oh, all right.
So
Yeah.
everything
Just you and
hurts.
Jed.
Just me and Jed. We're not like we hike like once or twice a year whenever we can, and we're always
where in
real
Brown County?
ambitious. Where in Brown County?
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Like
the
Brown
state
County
park.
State Park.
Yeah.
So I like drove right past you guys
Really?
on Saturday morning.
You probably saw him on the
I probably
roadside,
did, yeah.
camping in his hammock.
No, it was great, but we thought, or maybe I had thought, that this was an optional. You can either go 6 miles
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
or you can go 3 miles. So
Uh-huh.
One way.
after like mile 1,
You're
we
like,
realized this was really primarily for mountain biking, I guess. So there were a lot of like
Oh, no.
little clay like bunny hills and
Uh-huh.
things like that, and just for a human being walking, it was a bit much. And so
Yeah.
I thought we would check out at the 3 mile mark.
Sorry, I'm picturing the whole way you're walking. I picture bikers coming
Yeah.
like, out of the
Oh,
way.
they
Oh,
were.
yeah. On your
They
left.
Oh, yeah.
absolutely were.
Look out.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are trails that I am told are for bikes and humans, and this was one of them.
Yeah.
But no, bikers were absolutely coming, and there were a couple of really narrow spots where I was like, if a biker comes right now,
we're
what do
doomed.
I do?
Yeah.
There is nowhere to go. But there was no outlet at the 3 mile mark. So at the 3 mile mark, we realized there is no way but through.
That's
but
right.
we were chasing the sunlight. So that was real hard.
Oh, so you did almost camp out in the
We
woods.
did almost camp out in the woods with our cell phones and my jean jacket.
Did you know how much was ahead of you? Like,
Did
how
you
much,
have a map?
Yeah. Did you know where?
Well, Jed was using all trails
Uh-huh.
on his phone.
Hey, I don't know. I don't know if that was the right decision.
I mean, we made it. We survived.
Yeah,
but we really had to pick up the pace because we were chasing the
Yeah.
sun.
So did you know like this trail goes for 3 more miles? Or were you like, we'll just see where it goes. We know we've come 3 miles, and it would take 3 miles to get back, but it's
we
probably
knew
3
we
miles
had
ahead.
made it 3 miles. And
Yeah.
then we kind of estimated based on what we saw on the All Trails app, like, it looks about 2 hours. Like, we don't know.
Oh my goodness,
we have
yeah.
no idea what we're talking about.
Well, you
But-
don't realize that little squiggle is actually like 6 switchbacks down a
Exactly.
giant
Oh my
ridge. Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly how it went. So
Uh-huh.
So that was fun.
that was fun.
Well,
that was fun.
congratulations on your anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm definitely taking you guys backpacking sometime. I've just decided
Oh,
we're,
yeah.
we're all going.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to be sick that week.
Oh, darn. I'm going to miss it.
Yeah. I feel like I've told this story on the podcast before, but we weren't like camping or backpacking or anything, but Barry was there. And it was like our old small group. We went to a cabin in the woods and we're like, hey, let's go on a hike. And Barry heard the word hike. And I just see him running, like running at a sprint. And he throws his arms into the air and he goes, adventure.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I was only half joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's genuinely how I
man.
feel.
Yeah. Well, I got a pal here. You can't see him on camera, but
Lane.
Hey, pal.
Hey,
Lane's
Lane, come over here. Say
Hey,
hi.
pal.
Just say hi
You
to
wanna
the
come say
podcast.
hi?
Here, come quick.
He's ingrained in Netflix. Come over
Talk-
here real quick and just say hi.
Oh, my goodness.
Use the microphone and look at one of these cameras right here.
Look at the red dot.
Come sit where Barry is. Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
the camera and say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Nobody's there, but they'll watch it.
They'll watch it later.
Yeah.
Tell them what you have for breakfast.
Yeah.
He's
got
walking
all
away.
kinds of things to say.
He's
until
walking
the
away.
lights get brightest.
Good talk.
Yeah. So Milo's been super sick, and so my job today is keeping Lane away from the house. So
Wow.
he's here. Yeah. Other than that, not much new. We wrapped up fall break, so that our first fall break's in the bag. We didn't do anything for fall break, which is I don't know what you guys did. You guys ever have fall breaks and like go on fall breaks? Tim,
We had Teachers Institute.
Yeah.
what is that?
It was 2 days
Yeah.
where the teachers were supposed to go downtown and learn some new stuff. And
Oh.
we got 2 days
2 days
off.
out of school.
And when I got to high school, they always made the bands and the choirs go down and entertain the teachers. And so
Oh, that's
it was
terrible.
really terrible.
Wow.
Yeah. No, fall break. There's
Yeah, that
Yeah.
didn't exist.
Well, it
didn't
exists
exist.
now. It's either 1 or 2 weeks. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
think some
wild.
schools have 2
It's-
weeks, but we had a whole week and we had a lot of plans,
Mm.
and all of them fell through.
We had a longer summer too. Did you have a longer summer break?
Yeah, we had summer from about, well, it's usually before the race, which would have been, and they actually had the race on Memorial Day when I was when I was in school,
Oh yeah,
and we didn't start till the day after Labor Day.
yep.
Right.
So summer.
I feel like
was-
that's the way it was for us too. But
It was
The good old
a lot
days.
longer. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did have spring break. I remember spring break, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
much
fall
else.
break was not a thing.
yeah, everybody
Yeah.
leaves now for fall
Yeah.
break and spring
Mhm.
break and winter break, and
It's crazy.
my family never really did. We never did any of that, and
No.
so we had plans, but everything fell through, and so we were going to do like driveway movie where Lauren was going to invite the entire neighborhood over, and we were just going to put a projector onto the garage door
Mhm.
and just watch a movie, but we couldn't agree what movie it was. And then Milo got sick. And so instead we were like, let's watch a Halloween movie. Let's watch like a family friendly Halloween movie.
Uh-huh.
And they chose the second Harry Potter.
Is that Is that
The second
family
Harry-
friendly?
Well, I don't know. I mean, for probably people of a certain age, but he's 4
Yeah.
and there's like giant spiders and
Yeah.
giant snakes.
Dementors.
Well, those don't show up till
Oh.
Harry Potter 3, but it was just, that's
Too
what we did
much.
over fall break. Yeah, we terrorized the children with Harry Potter 2.
Yeah.
While Milo was sick. So that's what's new with us.
You dusted off your smoker,
Yeah, so I'm smoking some meat right now.
like right now as
Yeah.
we speak.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's at
Low
home.
and
It's at
slow.
home. Yeah.
What you working on?
I'm doing a Boston butt,
Mm.
otherwise known as pork shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've done that. And I hope it's, Lauren's in charge while I'm gone. So I hope it's not like on fire right now. But
Oh, it's fine.
yeah. So I started super early this morning. And it's about a 12-hour cook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. That's crazy.
All right. That's it.
Fun times.
Yep. So we're in week 3 of our current sermon series, Making Change, which is focusing on investing in people's financial health. Tim, you're here because you gave a sermon this past weekend. What was the big idea you wanted people to kind of walk away with?
I think primarily just the fact that generosity should be a part of any sort of financial wisdom when we're talking biblical financial wisdom.
Yeah.
I felt that it's probably self-evident that you're supposed to be generous. I mean, I mean,
yeah.
but I wanted to build a case for what it is that God values,
Mm-hmm.
and then say that our generosity should be aimed at those sorts of things. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. I knew that we were going to be talking about generosity this particular week. But I was enraptured with what you were talking about just because, well, first of all, how come every time I think I know what the Bible says about something, it's like I find out I was completely wrong. Like the ark doesn't mean boat. Like what in the
Yeah,
world?
that was
cool.
Well, I have to tell you, during the first hour, I knew I was going to say that.
Yeah.
And Steve Perkins was
Yeah.
sitting right there, and he's like a genius language person, and he teaches Latin. And I had not cleared that with him to be sure,
Uh-huh.
because I was just remembering
yeah.
because I took Latin in high school, and I lost track of what I was supposed to be talking about because I was trying to figure out how to ask Steve Perkins
Yeah.
in the service.
You had a live fact check, right?
Yeah,
in
I
the middle of
did. I
service.
did it.
You're
What
like,
were you
Steve,
gonna
am
do
I
if he
right
shook
about
his
that?
head no?
I did it first hour.
Yeah. Steve
and
gave you a thumbs up.
he did, and I think he appreciated it too.
Yeah.
'Cause
Hmm.
he is a freaking genius.
Yeah.
man.
And great radio voice.
And
He should do a
excellent
lot
taste
of
in music.
voiceovers.
Yeah, he has been a helper for me with both Greek and Latin. We don't use Latin much, but the primary language of the translation of the King James was Latin. So, but yeah, I've known that for a long time, and it just made sense to me to talk about it because it's always been an idea that has impressed my heart.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the concept of Noah's Ark being a treasure chest for what God cares most about,
Yes. Yeah.
was a complete new way of thinking about it for me.
Mhm.
I imagine it was for other people, but yeah, I was like, okay, I get it, generosity, but it's always like you drop stuff like that in your sermons, and I'm like, how come every time I think I have my head wrapped around what we're talking about here, it's like, oh, I was wrong.
Well, if I'd have just gotten up and said we're supposed to be generous,
Yeah.
everybody would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
you know,
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I thought I had a linear notion in my mind to get from one point to to get there, and the business about treasure in heaven. I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I knew that there were ideas about that circulated among the common people, but I also knew that there was a story at the very beginning of the Bible that tells us what God's treasure
Mhm.
is, and that we don't talk about it like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
For what it's worth, the Bible Project has just concluded doing a full year well, I guess they didn't do the whole year, but they did like 9 months to go through just the Sermon on the Mount. And they did like a really great episode on that passage and had some really interesting things to say about that same concept. For anybody who wants to like dig deeper, they really dug into like all those different things, a lot more about the lamp of the body and all that stuff. So if you're interested,
cool.
I would say go check that out as well.
Yeah.
So am I allowed to shout out other
Yeah, we'll just cut
podcasts
this part
on this
out.
podcast?
We'll just cut that out. But yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So this week, along with the prior 2 weeks, has really like I said, we all know that we all knew. Maybe Maren, you didn't know because you were on sabbatical, but we all knew that what the sermon series was going to be about, just broadly. But I've been very pleasantly surprised, coming away from each of these weeks, feeling like these concepts of stewardship and contentment and even generosity are much bigger than just something that we do. And I've been convicted in a number of moments, like the past few weeks, that we've heard that contentment and generosity are matters of the heart. And it's interesting to hear the difference, Tim, as you were talking about how in ancient people viewed the heart versus how we view it now. Like they viewed it as a very rational or logical way in how we make decisions.
Right.
But for me, I feel like coming into the series, I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm a generous person. I feel like we give financially to organizations, we give to Grace. This is something that we do. We try to be generous, but if generosity and stewardship and contentment includes like taking care of and seeing God's treasure, I'm not sure that I'm that. I'm not sure that I'm always that generous. Like I feel like when I give, honestly, like I don't even think about it because it comes out of my bank account and it's automatic and it's scheduled. And it happens once a month or however often. And while my behavior is generous, I'm being generous with what God's given me. The whole part about like doing it because I see what's important to God is just like, has not been a part of my mind. And so this sermon series has been very helpful in kind of convicting me of like, it should be more of a moment for me to be generous than just being like, yeah, this is what we do. And that this is just happens. I don't know. Have you guys thought about like, does that make sense? And do you guys wrestle with the concept of like giving because you see what's important to God versus that's just something we do? Like, have you guys ever
I think I hear what you're saying. I think it's important to remember why you're giving, especially in this era of, automatic withdrawals. We also have our tithes set up to be automatically withdrawn from our bank account. And so you do kind of lose that moment that I had growing up of like taking actual paper money and putting it in an actual plate as it passes by. And it's this communal event. Yeah. We still pass the plate at Grace and it still feels like a moment and feels like a communal event. But for my family personally, I think even my kids have their stuff set up for automatic withdrawal.
Yeah. Sure.
So you do kind of lose that moment. And it's important to do what you're doing now and just kind of remind yourself why you give. But I think the reason we give in the first place is because we care about the things that matter to God.
Yeah.
That's why we give to Grace Church, because this is a place that cares for God's treasures.
That's true. Like if someone were to ask me, why do you give to Grace? That would be my answer. Mm-hmm. But like on a week-to-week basis, I'm not like, we are going to be generous this week by giving to these organizations, including Grace Church, because of I'm not thinking about it. It's just kind of happening. Like my behavior is, it's like I'm checking generosity boxes or something.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing this and we are doing this as a family, but it's not like I'm doing this because I see that the people in front of me are God's treasure. And I feel like I there's a lot more work I could do with that. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Excuse me. Did you have something? You
go
can
ahead.
go. That's why I went into the heart business so heavily, because there's a rational action related decision-making process that I wanted to at least catch people's minds with it, because if you're just checking a generosity box because you're giving to, say, just a church in general, and you're not really thinking about what are we doing as a community? What's this church doing as a community with what I give? Then you're not doing the hard work that I think we should do. I think we should be thinking really clearly about what it is. But I have a deep sense. I would rather, I mean, I know this is a financial wisdom, biblical financial wisdom series, but being a generous person used to be a way people who were described when they're like just their being was open to others.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether giving money and generosity are necessarily one to one things all the time. Because I have had people say that, I'll talk about Jennifer, that she is a generous person. And I don't think it has anything to do with money. It has to do with the way that she reaches out to others and the way that she takes others in and cares for them and listens to them and all that stuff. And I think that's just as important a part of the generosity towards what God values as anything as money. Because I wonder sometimes, and we've talked about this even from the pulpit, but I mean, some people, it takes an awful lot of money before they're actually being generous because they're working with so much more money. But who are they as people is what I'm concerned with.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting you say that, because I want to kind of go into this a little bit differently than how I normally do. But before we do that, I've read a lot about like studies and why people give to places they choose to give, and generationally, how do people view things like generosity differently? And you're right. Like it's almost like in 2024, at least, there's a huge difference in how someone of one generation views generosity and how someone of a different, like if you say, can you explain what generosity means? The definitions are completely different. Like there's people of a certain generation that would say generosity actually has nothing to do with money. It has to do with how I spend my time, or me investing in the life of someone else, or serving, or whatever, like how you're choosing to invest your time. That is because that's the most valuable resource I have. How I choose to spend that is how you define me as generous or not. And it's broken down pretty strongly, like per generation. So
I think it's important to remember what you said earlier in your message, where you talked about the word that's translated treasure is kind of more lengthily described as the stored up things, the things that you are storing up to protect yourself for the future or something like that.
Right.
And I think that's a really interesting thing to consider, whether it's time or money or whatever, like where your stored up things are, like where you're putting your energy or your money or your resources of life, that's where your heart's going to be. That's where your mind, your intellect, yourself, that's where you're going to be driven by. And I think what we're all saying is there's a level to which our generosity, it pulls us forward towards the things. If it's towards the things that God cares about, it pulls us towards the things God cares about.
Yeah, right.
Whereas if it's greed, that also pulls us, but it's pulling us away from the things that God cares about. And so like one of the practices that I got into back when I was doing World Next Door, I was traveling all over the world, and I was seeing like injustice after injustice after injustice. It was extremely heavy and so much brokenness in the world. And I knew I didn't have the capacity to make a dent in any of those things. But I began a practice as I kind of encountered these people who were making a dent in their specific communities, is I would start to give a tiny, like something that I could afford to each one of them, set up $20 a month or something, or $10 a month here, just so that I had skin in the game. I was diversifying my portfolio of generosity. I was like, I want to at least have skin in the game, because this person is doing something amazing. $20 a month is probably not going to do much for them, but I want to be a part of their team.
Yeah.
And so that helped actually shift my relationship to some of these injustices, because before, if I hadn't done that, I would just be overwhelmed and leave with a level of hopelessness, or just like, man, I sure hope they're doing well. But when I've actually got some skin in the game with what they're doing, when I'm helping to support them financially, all of a sudden I have like a vested interest in them doing well. And I want to see their success in bringing an end to this injustice. And so that, in a small way, I think I began to see like, oh, there is a back and forth here. It was literally where my treasure was. That's where, like, I was storing up resources in something that would never pay me back in this life. I was giving money to help somebody combating a hopeless cause. That's never going to come back to me as like part of my retirement funds. But I was storing up treasures in heaven by doing that, because that's what God cares about. And I started to notice myself feeling more compassionate, more generous towards those issues. And I felt like I was with them in spirit as they were doing the hard work that I didn't have the capacity to do. So all that to say, I think there's this interplay between generosity and where our heart is drawn that I don't think we talk about as often as we probably should. There is an interplay there. And I think that's what the message is all about.
Yeah.
I had 2 examples that I didn't use in my sermon.
Yeah. What would you leave on the cutting room floor?
That actually spoke to my deepest feelings about this. One was I'm not going to mention the organization, but we had a group of young women stay at our house while their ministry was in town. And their job was to pretend to be fans of a boy band that the organization brought to town. And they were supposed to stand up in front of the stage and fawn over them. And then the boy band would stop and say, "You're not supposed to be worshiping us. You're supposed to be worshiping Jesus."
And that was their job?
What?
That was their job.
That
Ministry? That was their
and-
ministry?
Yeah.
I'm really confused.
That was their job in the ministry. It was a fake boy band that they would go to churches and say they were a Christian boy band.
What year?
And then these girls would,
ruled.
Did this happen in the 90s?
That sounds very 90s.
Yeah.
Was it?
no, it didn't happen in the 90s because it was so out of date and so stupid. Anyway, that was a clue to me, because I had a thing about all the Christian rock bands that would play secular music and then go, "Hey, now if you've been thinking about that kind of," and but with them, that was the key to me to start using my first century heart to make a really wise decision about whether or not I was going to share what God had given me with other people.
Yeah.
And does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the other was,
So how did that impact? Like, what did you come away believing or feeling about that?
that I needed to do a lot of, because if you just talked about the organization, everybody thought they were doing a good thing.
Yeah.
And they were here because they were not only doing their thing here, but they were raising funds. No, you got to think about it carefully about what the end result really is. And then the other was, there was a guy who came to my office one time and he said, "I've been giving my money generously to Grace Church for the last 2 years. And I just found out that I've got an opportunity that is just too good to pass up, and I need my money back."
Oh, he wanted it back.
Oh,
Yeah. And he left my office really mad.
Yeah.
oh, wow.
Because that one caught me off guard. He
Yeah.
had an opportunity. His deal was that he could make a lot more money off of that money than we were doing with it. And he could give us more money in the end if he got his money back and invested it in this new thing.
I see no flaws with that argument at all. I can see that being, wow.
That's wild.
Yeah. That was my experience.
Yeah. Oh, Lane's got a question. Okay. You're going to have to wait. Just a couple minutes. Yes, go potty.
Like right now?
You can hold it.
We could pause the show.
No, it's all right. Can you hold it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All right. So I want to do this a little bit differently because I think we've gotten the point across with like this specific message. So usually I try to go like point by point with sermons and ask questions I think people who listen to this are wondering. But today I'm coming with a couple of stats that I want to process together as it relates to people's generosity, finances, that kind of stuff. So I've been reading, and according to Barna Research, only about 5% of Christian adults tithe. Less than half of practicing Christians even understand what the word tithe means. So less than half of Christians even know what that means. So in a world where like financial security is paramount, what does it say about our understanding of financial stewardship and generosity if those things are true? Like 5% of Christian adults tithe, and then less than half even understand what the word tithe means.
And the question is what? What does
it say about our understanding of like as a society, as a group, as Christians? What does it say about our understanding of stewardship and generosity if those things are true?
That we don't have one.
Yeah.
How did we get there though? Like,
right. That's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question is how did we get there?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons that we
Yeah.
got there, but one of the reasons that we got there is that I think parents stop teaching their kids that this is like how things are done. And that could coincide with like faith deconstruction that they were doing. It can coincide with trying to move away from legalism and heavy-handedness that they maybe grew up with. And so there was